not seeming to work. All right, cool. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joannis, or Joe Patagua. I'm a Sierra Leone American living here in West Africa. I'm in Freetown right now, and we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the coup attempt that happened today. So for those of you who are joining on Instagram and TikTok, you guys have been here a little bit earlier before everyone else arrived. So I did ask you guys to let me know if you can from. So we got Atlanta in the house. We got California. I don't know where Graham is, but we got Graham. We got Texas in the house. Daisy says Instagram. Esther says Nigeria. Southern Plastic Charm says you can hear me. Cool. Let's see who else we got. So who all do we have, and where are you guys watching from? YouTube is moving a little bit slower, so we're giving them some time to catch up and get on board. But those of you guys who are watching from Instagram and TikTok, where are you guys watching from? We're going to talk about the coup, an attempted coup here in Sierra Leone. We got Zinga in the house. Zinga, what's up? Long time no speak. Zinga is working at Disney these days and is an Emmy award-winning writer-producer, if I'm not mistaken. So shout out to Zinga. Long time no speak. I hope all is well. We got Manelik in the building. Good evening, Manelik. What's up? iTuber12 has some things to say. He said, this was definitely a good idea, coup attempt, despite them dancing around it. The good news is that it is clear that the faction which wants the coup does not have access to weapons to pull it off, hence why they targeted the Armory. Releasing prisoners created chaos, but will backfire as the general populace has no appetite for war anymore. Okay, there you go. iTuber has a pretty good and succinct statement. Robert Grissom says, can hear you on YouTube from Indianapolis, Indiana. Okay, cool. What's up? Indianapolis, Indiana. Okay, we got, Zinga says, I know it's been forever, so proud of all the work you're doing. Thank you, and I as well. We definitely have to catch up soon. There's lots to catch up on, Zinga, but we got a lot to catch up on. Mr. K. Harding says, hi, Joe. What's up, K. Harding? Okay, Kai Harding. Only one is back. Long time no speak. Long time no see. Only one says exactly that. Long time no see. Hope you're well and safe. I'm still in Rwanda and loving it. Wow, you're still in Rwanda. Zinga's watching on LinkedIn and from LA, of course. All right, cool. So we have a bunch of people joining from Instagram too. And you guys were telling me where you're watching from. So let me come back. We got Isabel from Germany. Okay. We got Mr. Hilton from Connecticut. We got Tino from France. Wizfash from Ireland. Morgan from New York. Freelance Jamaica is from Canada. Wow, we got Intermatrix is from Miami. Nice. We have a very wide-ranging and far-reaching group today, watching from all around the world. This is great. We got James from Texas. I think we caught up with everyone who said where they're watching from. TikTok, you guys have been quiet. Where are you guys watching from on TikTok? I want to hear from you guys. What's up, Razia? Shout out to Razia in the building. Coach Pepe. Who else we have? All right, cool. So Mr. Kai Harding says, this is my first time with you live. It's good to be here. I'm glad you could be here for the first live. This is going to be an interesting one. We had a coup attempt here in Sierra Leone a little less than 48 hours ago. So it seems it was a coup attempt. There was a lot that happened, and I want to talk about it. I'm going to give you guys the goods. So we got Kika Moonlight from Delta, the Delta region in Nigeria. So yeah, so yesterday was an interesting day, and I'm going to kind of take you guys through my own personal experience, like kind of the play-by-play, and then we'll get into the news as it was going along. And you'll notice that there are going to be some things that I'm going to need to explain from memory or share differently than how the first part of the presentation and how I'm going to share it will go, because I did not get access to internet until about 3 p.m. today. So I was trying my best to put all the details together of what's happening and collect things as they were going along as much as I could so that I could prepare to go live tonight. But it has been a crazy 48 hours. So let me walk you through it. So Friday evening, I had a number of different things to do, many errands to run. So I ran all my errands on Friday. Saturday, I was in the house because I was working on some proposals and some things for clients that are starting. And so I said to myself, okay, look, Saturday, you can spend the day working. Sunday, you can run some errands. So Saturday, I spent the whole day working. I think I left to go take some photos somewhere really quickly, did some work out of a friend's shop. And then my plan was Sunday, I was going to do everything. I was going to re-up on my MiFi, and I was going to pay to get the electricity, re-up on electricity, and I was going to top up my Orange money. So all of that was running really low, and water was running out. But I was like, I got plenty till tomorrow, so what's one more day? Which, by the way, this is another lesson in why put off for tomorrow what you can do today. Because by not doing that, let me tell you what happened in the wee hours of Sunday morning. So I am awakened by my phone ringing. Lights don't go. And my phone is ringing off the hook over and over and over again. Ringing, ringing, ringing. I'm getting messages. It's ringing. Different people are calling that I know from different places, right? Mostly people of Sierra Leonean descent, but they're not related to each other. So the last time I got this number of phone calls, it was because of a tragic event that happened in the family, right? And so I was a little worried that this could be another situation like that. But when I looked at kind of the missed calls, it was different people that I know who don't know each other and who aren't all related in any way. So there's still a concern, but I was kind of slightly relieved that maybe it wasn't a family member that we had lost. But now I'm wondering, what is the situation? What's happening? So I kind of looked through who all was calling, and I just did kind of a process of elimination to determine who am I going to start with, and then work my way backwards to all the different people that I need to call based on closeness in terms of proximity and family relation. So with the first phone call, the first question was, what is going on over there? And I don't know the answer because I don't even know what's going on myself, right? And so they proceed to tell me that they heard that there was a gunfighting happening, which, okay, that's obviously concerning. They told me where it was, Wilberforce area, but that was all the details that they had at that point in time. And so for me, the question was, what is going on? And now let me try to figure it out. So that was how my Sunday morning started at 6 a.m. It started at 6 a.m. and it did not end until well after midnight this morning. And so I'm gonna walk you guys through what happened that day and then kind of what was happening for me. So let's get into that. But before we do, Auntie Alice is here. Hey, Auntie Alice. She says, hello, nephew. Okay, so let's get into it. So I'm just gonna do a presentation. I'm gonna share my screen and I'm just gonna walk you through the timeline of events. But I realized that because my internet was acting up and it's been a crazy day, I kind of jumped right into it without fully, introducing myself for all of you who are new on TikTok, new on Instagram, and even those of you who are new on YouTube. I think maybe it would do some justice to give you a little bit of an understanding of who I am so you know who you're watching. Many of you probably do know, but those who don't, I'm gonna do a quick rundown of who I am and what I do so you get a little bit of an idea of who you're watching speak to you. And then we're gonna get into the timeline of events as I see it and as has been reported. So give me 1 second because it has been a crazy 24 hours, like I said. So I'm going to try my best to share what I can on screen now. So let's do it. And let me tell you guys something. To be without internet for all those hours yesterday was very difficult because, of course, so many people were trying to communicate with me, and many people couldn't get through to me. So I think some people were concerned that I may have been affected and impacted negatively. The interesting thing is there was an event that I was invited to Saturday night. I was unable to attend, but had I attended, at the time that I would have been leaving, I actually would have had to drive by what was happening. And I'm not too sure that would have gone too well because of all the things you can imagine considering what happened. So let's do this. Let's do a real quick introduction to who I am and make sure you guys know like who I am and what I do. So let's make sure first, can you guys see my screen? Okay, yeah, it looks like you can see my screen. Cool. So let's get into it. Let me move this over here so it's easier for me to go back and forth. I am going to put it on slideshow. So just waiting for it to load. All right, so for those of you who haven't already, hit that thumbs up. And of course, share this with anybody you know who has been wondering what has been going on over the last 48 hours here in Sierra Leone. I'm going to do, like I said, a play-by-play, a rundown of everything. I mean, I'm going to just start by saying this. At least 20 people have experienced loss of life. So let's just start by, obviously that somber moment and understanding that that is what happened. And over 2,000 or close to 2,000 prisoners have escaped from Pandema Road prison, as did. So they say. So that's just to give you a little bit of an idea of what actually has happened and what's transpired in this time. That's the high level synopsis. All right, so let's quickly, like I said, share this with people who you know, who might be interested in this story, what's been happening, who want to know what's going on. Make sure you share this with them. If you haven't already subscribe, and turn on post notifications. All right, so really quickly, for those of you who don't know, I do assist with people moving to West Africa, specifically Ghana or Sierra Leone. I have many services that I offer for visiting Ghana, for moving to Ghana, and for moving and visiting Sierra Leone. You can book a consultation with me, link in the description of the YouTube video and links in my link tree on Instagram and on TikTok. Also, I can also work as an influencer for brands. Any brands who are looking to have an influencer, here are the services that I offer. I also do social media consulting. We have over 230,000 followers across all the platforms. Everywhere where I'm talking to you all today is over 230,000 here, and others, everywhere I'm live actually. So everywhere from Instagram, Facebook, and this number needs to be updated on the upper left-hand corner. I think we just hit 180,000 followers on Instagram. So I want to thank all of you guys for the support and helping us there. We're still trying to get those numbers up on TikTok. We're around 20K on TikTok. YouTube, we're trying to get to 20K before the end of the year. We're trying to get to 200 before the end of the year on Instagram, 200,000. So I need your help, guys. Let's push it and get us there. So we get this message out to more people, right? This kind of information that people are looking for. All right, so if you want to work with me, information is in the description. I also can do Instagram promotions. I do like to mention that it doesn't matter how many people you have follow you. It matters who is following you and who is engaging. So if you are looking to post on Authentic African, you do have the potential of getting in front of folks like Taraji P. Henson and many other verified and well-accomplished folks offline. They are followers of Authentic African, the platform online. So I just like to mention and show that there are many different price points. All right, so let's get into the coup attempt. It has been a wild, like close to 24 to 48 hours. So for whatever reason, wait, first of all, let me answer some questions. It looks like some questions came in. Haji Ba says, hey, Joe, Sierra then we are strongly getting people get back to normal by the end of. So let's get right into. Sorry guys, this video started playing. I wasn't prepared for it to start playing. Okay, so so as reported by Sierra Leone, around 2 a.m., heavy gunfire erupted near the Sierra Leone military barracks, Wilberforce military barracks, which are near the President's Lodge and the Vice Presidential Lodge. Sources suggested that the gunfire was originating from the main military barracks at Wilberforce near the President's Lodge. Limited details were available at the time, but senior military source indicated that there was a breach at the Armory. Now, here's something that I just want to call this out because it is a little bit of a concern to me, and I think it's important to discuss this. My former contractor, my first contractor, you guys might remember, I've been through 3 contractors now. My first contractor mentioned to me that one of the jobs he had gotten early on in his career was fortifying the military barracks, right? To ensure that they could not be breached. Because from my understanding, during Sierra Leone's civil war, that was one of the things that was done in order to get guns for rebels, right? They breached the military barracks, they breached armories, were able to get guns, and that was what they were using to continue to move through and continue to confiscate more weapons and to build up their force. So in my mind, I would presume that these barracks would be and the armories would be fortified and this would not be able to happen. But as we'll talk about later, it looks like there's some folks with information, military information, that might have been the ones responsible for this. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But just keep that in mind, right? The first thing that happened was they got into an armory, they got guns, and apparently bombs as well. So this is what it sounded like on the ground for many Sierra Leoneans at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. So, and it was ongoing, right? I mean, that was at 2 a.m. It lasted even till 5 a.m. So there was still shooting going on at 5 a.m. in the morning. And here's another video of what that sounded like, even at 5 a.m. from another person's perspective. I hope an ad doesn't play before this plays. Okay, here we go. So you could hear it ongoing firing. So over 3 to 4 hour span. I mean, this went on for a long time. Now, I didn't wake up until about an hour after this, so I had no idea any of this was happening. Apparently, where I'm staying right now, people could hear it, and I may have heard it in my sleep, but I thought it was thunder, which most people thought it was like thunder or lightning, thunder. And so many people did not react until Sunday morning, later in the morning, when they found out what was happening. Now, I had 3 different groups of friends that were out Saturday night who all experienced some version of what was happening. So I had one group of friends who, as they got into their house, they heard everything erupting, right? Just gunshots, everything, because they live less than 2 to 5 minutes away from where this all happened. So they got home, I guess, maybe around like 1:30 or something like that. And then they heard all of this. I have another set of friends who were out, further out by the beach, and on their way home, they heard it. And one friend lost contact with another friend. And another friend that was out, same thing. She lost contact with her friend. She finally ended up speaking to her. One of my friends, she was up all night because she heard the gunfire. She slept on the floor for fear of what was happening and obviously not knowing what was going on, right? So if you can imagine, right, you hear all of this gunfire after just being out all night, you know, there's so many things going through your mind. Like, what if I was still out there? What if I decided to stay at the party a little longer? What if I had one more drink? What if? And so all of these things were happening going through people's minds, and so many conversations and calls and things that were happening. But that was what I was hearing from them when I spoke to them the next day. It was like, mostly all of them heard it on their way home. And so they all rushed home to try to get away from the gunfire. Luckily, nobody I know was affected physically by what was going on. They happened to be far enough away that this happened. And thank goodness I opted out of going to that event that night. Otherwise, I may have had to go through the gunfire to get home. So I was spared in this situation as well. Abu Bakar is here. What's up? Mosi Main is here. Glad you're safe. Thank you. I'm glad I'm safe too. It was a pretty crazy situation considering, well, all things considered. Okay. So you guys got a chance to kind of hear what the gunshot sounded like, right? And from a distance. So around 7:30 in the morning, Sierra Leone, the government, declared a nationwide curfew. What you can see here was the public notice. I'm going to play for you Shanor Ba, the Minister of Information and Civic Engagement. He gave a brief interview to the BBC about at the time with the information he had and the nationwide curfew. So I'm going to play that for you guys so you guys can hear what announcement came from the government at 7:30 in the morning yesterday.
Attack the military armory at Wilberforce, and Wilberforce is a populated community. It's very close to a number of other important installations across the country, including it's close to where the president is currently located. Attempted to get access. There was a little bit of a security breach, but some security officials have indeed been able to repel them, and they're in the process restoring full and complete calm across the country. We have declared a nationwide curfew. We're asking our residents, our citizens, to stay indoors, especially because we're in the process of trying to track down the retreating renegades who attempted this illegal activity. While that is happening, we have asked our citizens to stay indoors, and we will issue updates as well during the day on the situation across the country.
So that operation is ongoing. Can I just confirm, have there been any casualties?
None that we can confirm at this minute, but as I said, it's still a fluid situation, but we don't have any confirmation of any casualties at this second.
Okay, and to be clear, so everyone was asked to stay at home, shelter in place. And then what I understood is the curfew was basically, it was just instituted immediately. So yesterday morning, now let me kind of get back into my own personal circumstance yesterday. So yesterday, so I get up, I have these conversations. I spoke to people for a little over an hour before I even got out of bed, right? I mean, as you can imagine, these are just people calling, asking what's happening, sending me information as they're hearing it, sending video, all that kind of stuff. So it was right around 7:30 or so where I finally got a chance to walk outside. And as I'm going outside to try to see if I can go get some fruit or something for breakfast, I am met by people who have mentioned that we were in a curfew and nothing was open. Well, nothing was open was a little bit scary for me because, again, my power was almost at zero. So I had like no way to add to my meter, basically, to get me more electricity so that I could have electricity. My MiFi was coming, the subscription was coming to an end. It was kind of like sputtering. The internet connectivity was coming to an end. So I knew that yesterday was going to be its last day. And on top of all of that, I also didn't have any data for calls on my phone. So once I took all those calls and the MiFi started sputtering and I couldn't hear people and it was very difficult, I went out and I said, okay, let me at least go try to find some food. Let me go try to buy some water. Well, nothing was open. Nobody was there. There was one woman selling bread So I bought bread from her, but that was it. So it became a mission to try to figure out how I'm going to top up my MiFi, how I'm going to add data to my phone, how I'm going to buy water, and what my meals for the rest of the day were going to be. I ate bread and peanut butter all day yesterday. That's what I ate, bread and peanut butter. That was what I ate all day yesterday. Because, of course, there was nothing else open, right? So I definitely, got my carbs and protein in yesterday. But to get water, luckily, my caretaker has a relationship with one of the people who owns a shop. And so he was able to go with them. They opened the back door, gave like 4 waters. And so I had 4 waters to ration for the day yesterday, 4, of these size waters. And so I usually drink about 6 of these. So I was trying to be as judicious. I don't know. I was trying to be as, as ration as much as possible so that I had enough water for the full day and potentially for today, because I didn't know what was going to happen today. So on that note, we were able to add some orange to my account. There was a guy who lives way up from me. And so my caretaker went up to him. He was able to add 300 Leones to my account. So I used 200 of them to buy 10 gigabytes of data from my phone that could last me to today. And then I also added talk time so that I could actually talk to people. And so that was what I had to do. And then I had a little bit of orange money left over, which is one of the mobile money carriers here, so that I could send money if I needed to here and there. But yeah, that was how my day went yesterday. But let's get back into the minister's statement, and then the mini interview from him, and then we'll move on to some of the rest of the stories from the day.
Can you explain to me whether or not there are suspicions that this was a coup?
Well, I mean, I think the threshold for a military coup is something that the security apparatus will determine. But indeed, it seemed like it was a coordinated attack at a major military installation, and as I said, a very important one at that. So once we are through with investigations and have sufficient information to be able to make a determination on whether this was an attempted coup, we'll make that call.
Are you able to tell us the whereabouts of President Julius Maada Bio?
Absolutely. His Excellency the President is at his lodge this morning. He's at the Presidential Lodge in Freetown.
I found that interesting, right? So, obviously, if many of you may or may not know, right, the president is former military and also was a part of a coup a little over 20-something years ago. And so, it's interesting that this happened and he did not leave the Presidential Lodge, even though this happened not too far from the Presidential Lodge. And it was announced by the Minister of Information on public radio that he remained at the Presidential Lodge, which means that he was confident that whoever was doing this was not going to be able to get to him and remove him, which is just interesting. I'm not going to say one way or the other, whatever your political leanings are. I just think that that's an interesting statement. And that's to me a show of force, to show that you don't have any fear that anything's going to happen to you. And you stay at the Presidential Lodge and then make an announcement publicly. So I thought that was interesting. And I wanted to call that out because generally I would have expected him to say, we're not willing to tell you his whereabouts, but he is safe, right? But he said exactly where he was. And I thought that was an interesting point that he made and statement that he made. Mr. London Boy for Life is here. Cool. All right. So let's move on to the next slide. So at around 7:37, the U.S. Embassy in Sierra Leone issued an alert. And basically, here's what it said, right? Reports of gunshots and explosions in the vicinity of the Wilberforce barracks. The U.S. Embassy in Sierra Leone is monitoring reports of gunshots and explosions in the vicinity of the Wilberforce barracks. The government of Sierra Leone has instituted a nationwide curfew. The U.S. Embassy has instructed staff to shelter in place and monitor local media and government reports. Now, if you are an American citizen here in Sierra Leone, you are supposed to alert the embassy that you're here. And by the way, I think that's for anybody who's an American citizen in any country that you might be in. You should alert the embassy that you're there. Or if you are a citizen of the UK or any other country, if you're in another country, you should probably make sure that the embassy knows you're there. Because if anything happens in that country, your embassy is where you can go to be on sovereign country land, and also can be extracted if necessary, and taken to your country of origin if needed. And so these emails went out to everyone who have made sure that the embassy knew that they're in country. And so this was just kind of like people monitoring the situation and want to make sure they know what the U.S. Embassy says. All right, so this was interesting. So Amaru Fofana, who is a journalist here in Sierra Leone, had spoken about coming face to face with a soldier. And they had talked about, we will clean the society. We know what we're up to. We're not after any ordinary citizens who should go about their normal business, right? The idea is that these folks, the military, were really specifically looking for those who were the culprits in this particular incident. So, Umaru actually made a U-turn and left, but there was more to the story. So, basically, he witnessed an armored police vehicle bearing bullet marks being overtaken by soldiers equipped with RPGs. The soldiers reassured Fofana and his colleague that they were in no danger. The Sierra Leone government expressed gratitude for the prompt and decisive action taken by the security forces. So that's, obviously as a reporter, reporters like to be on the front lines and put themselves at risk to be able to get the story to you all and to us. I myself am not a reporter, so I definitely was sheltering in place right here. Didn't go anywhere near what was going on. But I want to make sure I give you guys kind of the play-by-play as it happened throughout the day. So this is at 9:30 in the morning yesterday. There's a whole day yesterday that went on, and all things considered. And there were so many things happening today as well. But we'll get to some of the rest of the stories from yesterday. So now, 2,000 prisoners estimated to have been released. Okay, so let's be very clear on this, right? The initial reports are that when these perpetrators or these alleged coup attempters breached the Armory, not only did they get military assault rifles, they also got bombs. And apparently they bombed the prison at Pademba Road. And that was how all of these prisoners escaped. Now that is an alleged story. That hasn't been confirmed as far as I understand. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody watching, if you know for sure that it has been confirmed that they did actually bomb the prison. But from what I understand, they bombed the prison and a number of people were let out. Now, the first video I'm going to play for you, you're going to hear someone asking the prisoners, how many years did you have? Right? And so many of them were being asked as they went by, and you'll hear the number of years they were saying that they had. Now, some people think, let them all free. I think many people are thinking, wait, if somebody just said 30 years, why did they have 30 years? What did this person do? So let's listen to the communication between this person filming and the prisoners as they're walking freely.
Free the guys, man. Free the bros. Yes. Free the guys. Free the guys. 7 years. 7 years. How much years? 30 years. 24 years. Hey, boy. God bless you now. How much years? How much years? Okay.
7/24/13. Somebody had 24 years and was just walking free. Now, look, obviously, you know, there are going to be people in prison who may have been wrongfully convicted, right? That's something we talk about a lot in the United States, wrongful convictions. That's why you have so many organizations that are helping those people get justice, right? But what about those who should be in prison, right? We're talking about murderers. We're talking about people who have committed heinous crimes of sexual assault and things like that. These people, many of these people are free. Close to 2,000 prisoners set free, from what I understand. Now, that was a number that came from, I think it was Reuters or Al Jazeera. And so I took it just directly from their headline. But I mean, if the number is even 500, and let's say 30 of them were rightfully convicted, how would you guys feel knowing that those people are roaming the streets, right? That's something that, you know, is concerning to me for sure. So you better believe the fortress is fortified. Doors are locked, gates are locked. You know, and I'm at night, I'm not playing around. You know, we're protected here, we'll put it that way. So so I do want to play this video. So LAJ is an artist here in Sierra Leone. He lived in the States for a while. He is part of a group of folks who was a big supporter of the previous administration. And he had been very critical of the current administration. There was an incident at a gas station, and where there may have been a fight, there may have been some items taken, what I understand to be about $2,000 to $3,000 worth of things taken. And many people believe that his previous comments and his statements, along with this incident, led to him being sentenced to, if I'm not mistaken, 6 years in prison. And so some people I know at the time felt that it was unjust and harsher punishment. There are other people who agreed with the punishment. One of the things that I was told at the time was that he had long locks. They had shaved his head. I had known other people who apparently went to visit him, and apparently they were also remanded and held in police custody as well. And so this is footage of him as he's walking with maybe some prisoners, but also probably a bunch of people from the neighborhood who recognize him. So, you know, people were really excited to hear that he was out. I know someone who shaved their head, a young lady who shaved their head in solidarity with LAJ when he was initially locked up. And I can tell you from her Instagram and her WhatsApp status and all of that, she's very happy that he was out. Basically was saying her prayers had been answered. You know, that was the way she had been looking at it. So he has a lot of respect from a lot of people here, especially people who support the opposition party. And so there were many people that were happy to hear that he had escaped from prison. Now, let me take it a step back. I mentioned to you guys before on a live a couple of weeks ago that there was a plot to overthrow the government by, allegedly there was a plot to overthrow the government by some former and current military officials. And as far as I understand, I think 13 different individuals were arrested as part of that plot. to overthrow the government. They hadn't gone this far, but there was a plot. Then, if I'm not mistaken, there was another incident or another few other incidents where other people were arrested for the same thing. My inclination is that if any of them were being held at Pedemba Road, that was probably the reason for this prison breach, was to allow them to get out and for them to continue to plot a coup. So I'd like to believe that, you know, we were able to, the government of Sierra Leone, the country that I'm in, was able to stop this from happening, and that should be it. But something tells me that there's probably more to come, depending on who all was in that prison, and if, in fact, they do plan to do something like this again. So I just wanted to give my extra 2 cents on that element there, because I think that that's, you know, because you wonder, you break into an armory, why go directly to a prison? Now, some say might be to seed chaos. Some might say to recruit soldiers for your cause, or maybe there were some people in there that they felt could help them further their cause, in terms of the information they can provide and the skills that they might have. I don't know, but that was just I think a piece of insight that I'd like to give, because I was unclear as to why they would do this. And as I thought about it a bit, and as I've talked to people, it seems apparent to me that it seems likely that there was a larger reason. And we may find out in the coming months what that might be. I hope not, but there may be more to come on this. All right, let's see if there's any other questions, comments as we go along, because there's a lot that I just went over there. Tim Black says, try to stay safe, Joe. Will do. Marie Shai says, hello, everyone. Please stay safe, Joe, and everyone else in Sierra Leone. Will do. Okimute says, oh, hi, Joe. Does this mean 2,000 prisoners are still out there? That's dangerous. Yeah, from what I understand, most are still out there. Many are still out there. I did hear a story about one guy who was apparently arrested for being a thief, basically. And he was trying to steal again yesterday or today and was caught and has been put back in jail. So that's an anecdotal story. There's some video of it. I don't know if I have the video here to share with you guys, but there's video of, you know, mob justice, of people like beating him, because mob justice is something that does still happen here in Sierra Leone from time to time. And, you know, this guy apparently tried to steal some things and was apprehended. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to see what's that over there. Okay, cool. But yeah, so they may still be out there. And so that is concerning. That's definitely concerning. Many of which, like I mentioned, are across the spectrum in terms of crimes. I mean, somebody who was expected to do 24 years, someone else was supposed to do 13 years. Just in that 2 seconds of somebody talking to them and asking them, what do you think that they did to get 24 years or to get 13 years? And those people are likely still free, right? So there is a bit of a concern there. People were just moving around though, like there's nothing, like there's no issue. I'm still a little bit concerned, and so, I'm, like I said, fortifying myself in here and looking for means to protect myself and my valuables if necessary. And maybe we'll talk about that on another day, on another live. Okay. So, around 10 or 11 a.m., presidential hopeful who ran against Marabio in this election, Samora Kamara, reacted to the security breach and actually made a statement. So he made a statement saying, fellow Sierra Leoneans, we are woken up today Sunday, November 26th, with a security threat to this, our beloved country, Sierra Leone, I wish to draw from the public notice by the Ministry of Information and Civic Education to stress the critical importance of the advice contained therein. The government has announced a nationwide curfew effective immediately. We are advised to stay indoors while the state security forces are taking control of the situation. Let us all pay heed to this advice and continue to put our faith and trust in God Almighty and pray that this will be all over sooner rather than later, taking us back to our normal life soonest. His mercies endureth forever. The peace, unity, and safety of our country are paramount, and everything else will follow for a prosperous and secure Sierra Leone. This country needs the peaceful energies of each and every one of us to build, sustain a better future for all. So that was his statement, which I think is important for him to make a statement like this. We've talked about in other countries when things like this happen, and the people who do it are on your side. We've had other folks who had not condemned or had not told people to follow certain rules. So it's good to see in Sierra Leone, the opposition party who, in theory, this was done in their name, was done potentially in their name, that they were, steadfast and made this statement. Now, people can have their own belief systems about whether or not they believe this or whatever, but I think it was important that the statement was made because we as a country do need to have a unified, I would say, message around certain instances such as this. I mean, we have all had this discussion before about coups in West Africa or on the continent in general. And I think what's interesting to me is how enthusiastic people are about coups who are nowhere near where the situation is happening, right? So, I've had so many conversations and I've seen so much online of people saying like, yeah, that's right. Africa's waking up. We need to see Africa do these things. But what you don't take into consideration is that there is gunfire and there is loss of life. And a lot of times there's a potential for people who have nothing to do with the situation to be impacted, right? And so ideally, coups are not the answer to being able to get the political outcome that you're looking for, right? Ideally, it's done through elections and free and fair elections, the ideal scenario. And so I do just want to say that as someone who I had said this like a couple months ago, right? When we were talking about what was happening in Burkina Faso, we had talked about what was happening with Ali Bongo. And I had mentioned to you guys, I was like, look, people get real excited and get enthusiastic about these coups because they're thousands of miles away and it does not directly impact them. But for those of us who are on the ground, this stuff is scary. This is not the kind of thing you want to wake up and experience, right? Like an attempted coup, especially when you can hear the gunshots. You have friends and family who live nearby this situation where it happened. You have prisoners released. There's so many different elements to this, and you just don't know, even if there is a coup, if the person who takes over is going to be who you want to be in power. It so happens that in Burkina Faso, I think the people are very supportive of the junta there, and the same thing in Mali, but that may not always be the case, right? And so I think that that's another thing that needs to be taken into consideration when people are so enthusiastic about the idea of a coup. So I just want to mention that and give you guys that additional context and that thought process that I'm going through right now as someone who's been covering the coups that have been happening around West Africa and the one that just recently happened in Central Africa, and sharing it with you all. I have a nuanced opinion because I'm on the ground, right? And I talk to people who are dealing with life here day to day. And, although some people may want to see a change in leadership, I think very few of those people are willing to see loss of life in order to get there. Not everybody believes that the ends justifies the means. All right. Let's see if there are any other questions, comments, concerns before we move on. Looks like right now, no more questions or comments on this, so we'll move on to the next. So at about 11:30, the government activated an emergency call service Basically, if you have an emergency, call this number, right? And basically, there was a bunch of different numbers for AfriCell. If you can't get through to one, try another one, try another one. And for Orange, if you're on the Orange network, there were 4 numbers. So 3 for AfriCell, 4 for Orange, for a toll-free emergency. So yeah, those are the numbers that you can call to ensure that you can report any emergency situations. So for those of you in country who are watching this and you haven't seen this already, make sure you pay attention to this, or just look up this article from Sierra Leone. They have all the numbers there listed there. So make sure you really look at these and save them, store them in your phone, because if something happens, you want to be able to make that phone call. The U.S. government around 12:01 said we condemn in the strongest possible terms the attempted overnight forceful seizure. Such actions have no justification. The United States continues to stand with all of those working for a peaceful, democratic, healthy, and prosperous Sierra Leone. That's what the statement said. That was the information coming from the embassy. So Red Flag Music, which is the label that LAJ is a part of, did say he would voluntarily turn himself in. That was around 12:30 p.m. What he said is, it's crucial to emphasize that LAJ is a law-abiding citizen with a strong connection to the community. The management team expressed concern for LAJ's well-being, stating that circulating videos indicate he, guided by fellow prisoners, had no intention of causing harm during the escape. The atmosphere within the prison reflects a genuine concern for his well-being. We believe that when the tension subsides, LAJ will voluntarily turn himself in. So that was him making the statement. At 1:23 p.m., there were fresh gunshots heard. So there were more gunshots, this time in the Jue section and Hastings community in the eastern part of Freetown. So like if you're on your way to Bo or some of the outer provinces, that's kind of the way you pass. You pass by Jue and Hastings on the way. So apparently there was more shooting happening there. Grafton, Jue, Hastings, the eastern part of Freetown. So, you pass Regent, then you have Grafton, then you have like Jue and Hastings kind of in that area, if I'm getting it correct. So so the security forces have been pushed back and assailants are in the outskirts of the city, right? And they were currently being engaged in the Jue area by this time, by 1:23 p.m. yesterday. So by 1:36, the U.S. Embassy issued another statement that said, remain sheltered in place. The government forces are still conducting operations in Freetown. A curfew remains in effect, and travel within Freetown and the greater area is not safe. Remain sheltered in place until further notice. And let me also mention that the timing of this is not ideal, as there are a number of African Americans here going through the citizenship process, right? They got here, I think, last Thursday. And, 3 days into their stay here, something like this happens. And so I've spoken to a few today who seemed relatively calm about it. Obviously, it's not an ideal scenario. They sheltered in place yesterday. Today, they had some other activities. They're still waiting to hear if tomorrow things are going. But I also had some friends who went to work today, went right to the office, worked a normal day as they always do, as if nothing changed. I had to go to the telecom company to get my MiFi. They were open for business. People just going about their day. Now, it is quiet on most streets. It's definitely not like how it is normally. But there are more people out on the street than I anticipated, that's for sure. All right, so ECOWAS, of course, issues a statement reiterating zero tolerance for unconstitutional change of government. We condemn any attempt to undermine the democratic process and destabilize the peace and security of Sierra Leone. So they also pledged their support. Then Sierra Leone's SLCAA declared a nation, and they mentioned a state declared nationwide curfew. So they urged airlines to reschedule departing passenger once the curfew was lifted. Despite the said situation, Sierra Leone's airspace remained open, so they did allow flights to come in, and but they just recommended. Wow, that was difficult for me to say. People don't leave the country, and they actually delay flights. So I wanted to show you this video of an abandoned vehicle that was found yesterday afternoon, and it had artillery, quite a bit of military-grade vehicles, and what they called hazardous cargo. So let's play this video. All right, let me pause it so that it can stop buffering. But as you can see, I mean, these are, boxes that can hold rifles. You can see a gun here, I think, with a scope, if I'm not mistaken. This. You have book bags with, I would imagine, ammunition, boxes of ammunition. Imagine people, just average people coming across this. So the residents did call the authorities. And so the authorities came to assess the situation, and apparently the vehicle was taken back into the authorities' possession. Okay. Any other questions, comments before we go along? I'm sure there's more. Jax Roosh says, wow. Two Visions has prayer hands. Yes, so it has been quite an interesting, like I said, 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. Okay, so let's get back into the presentation. All right, so there was some arrests made, and so here's some footage of some of the arrests.
Yeah, gentlemen, the leather boots this and can attack jail you. Don't one out, drop them. Yes, and I saw they drop the all by God in power. Yes, I saw they drop the all. Leather boots. The sky for Issa now, let go up. Let go up now.
So there you go. Now, based on the video, a member of security forces claims that among the captives is a well-known figure named Leatherboot. He was key security personnel during the previous regime. So some people are speculating that it was security from the previous regime that was heading up this coup attempt. And Leatherboot is one of those folks. Now, once again, my Instagram is coming to a close. You know that you can only do 1 hour on Instagram, I guess, these days. And so I'm going to start again on Instagram, and then we're going to finish the rest of this live. So give it a second. All right, let me just do this really quickly. It has been an interesting day and a half. I mean, imagine waking up to all those phone calls of people trying to tell you something crazy is going on, and you have no idea. Like, you're just waking up to, I had 11 missed calls from 7 different people, right? And so I was just confused. Like, what could possibly be so important that so many people are sending messages? And that question was answered rather quickly as soon as I made a phone call. Okay, cool. Let me just, sorry, I'm just trying to get this saved so that I can move on to going live again. Okay, so going live again on Instagram. So let's give it a second. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing now because due to the challenges with internet, I wasn't able to go through and complete all the videos of everything that happened. But I will say at about 5:40, the former president's bodyguard was shot dead by soldiers in Freetown. Some speculate he was potentially part of this. There are details to follow on that, but he was the one of the personal bodyguards of the former president, who was of the opposing party, by the way. So there are people who have, all kinds of belief systems to that. There were definitely different people from different parts of the international communities who had a lot to say. Around 7 p.m., there were some statements released. At 8 p.m., the president of Sierra Leone addressed the nation. So I want to play for you his presidential address. Do I have it? I should have it. Wait a second. Okay, I do have it. Yeah, give me a second, guys. It's been one of those days, so let me just get my, let me just get to it, and then I will share it. Because I think it's important for you guys to hear this presidential address, right? Now, it's a rather lengthy address, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to play a little bit of it so you guys can get the gist. The real source says it's 10 p.m. now in Sierra Leone. It is 10 p.m. now in Sierra Leone. That's right. So let's do the entire screen. Let's go. Okay, you guys can see my screen. So let's press play on this. All right, here we go.
Fellow Sierra Leoneans, in the early hours of this morning, there was a breach of security at the military barracks at Wilberforce in Freetown. Some individuals attacked the military armory and other locations in Freetown, including Pademba Road Correctional Center. In the event, prisoners escaped. The attackers have been repelled by a combined team of gallant security forces, and calm has been restored. Most of the leaders have been arrested. Security operations and investigations are ongoing. We will ensure that those responsible are held accountable through due process. I acknowledge the bravery and dedication of our armed forces, police, and all those who play the role to undermine the peace and stability we've worked so hard to achieve. Their commitment to the defense of our democracy deserves our deepest gratitude. I thank all citizens for complying with the security measures and advise everyone to remain vigilant and to cooperate with the security forces. Fellow Sierra Leoneans, in times like this, we are reminded of the importance of national unity. Let us not succumb to fear or division. Let us come together as one people, one nation. Our strength lies in our unity, and it is through solidarity that we can overcome challenges that come our way. I call on all political leaders, traditional leaders, civil society, and citizens across Sierra Leone to continue working to preserve the peace of our nation. As your Commander-in-Chief, I want to assure everybody who is resident in Sierra Leone that we have overcome this challenge, and together we will continue on the path of progress and development. May God bless Sierra Leone and its resilient people. Long live the Republic of Sierra Leone.
All right, that was the statement from the president of Sierra Leone. So you got it there. That was the statement. So you know, it's been like I said, I've said it a few times. Been a crazy 24 hours. And you know, it's one of those things where you know, you hear different people from the international community making statements and giving their thoughts. You hear different people saying, you know, different things on either side of the conflict. And the thing that I think about most is how safe are we all in the next coming weeks, right? Is there another potential blow up like this? Are the prisoners going to be doing anything, right? I mean, these are all things that, you know, I am concerned about and things that I'm thinking about. So I'm just hoping that, you know, this situation is one that will end peacefully, but only time will tell. So yeah, so that was all the major updates until about 8 p.m. last night. I will say that LAJ did turn himself in. I would play that video for you, but it's just I'm having trouble with the rest of the videos and playing the rest of the videos. So I'll say LAJ did turn himself in. So the mayor of Freetown gave a statement. Some folks from ECOWAS did come into the country. So, you know, there's just been so the ECOWAS security force and what is it? A delegation sends a high-powered delegation to Sierra Leone. So they did come to Sierra Leone. At least one person has experienced loss of life from a stray bullet. So not everybody who was involved in this were the only casualties. There were at least one, you know, innocent bystander. Let's see if there's anything else that we want to call out. Let's see. The Nigerian delegation arrives in Freetown. Of course, they arrived, or well, it was reported that they arrived around 8. Let's see. Let's see if there's anything else. So those are the main updates as of right now. From what I understand, the curfew is from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. You're not supposed to leave the house. So most people are abiding by that. You know, I got home at like 8 o'clock because I was out somewhere utilizing their AC and getting dinner and all that kind of stuff. So I came back home. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. And so those are the details. I mean, I kind of gave you guys the main updates of what happened. But you guys let me know. What do you guys think about what you guys heard about today and the situation as it stands? I'd like to hear from you all. I haven't heard any opinions as of yet. Didi, my cousin Didi says, "Hey, cuz, be safe out there." Will do. Appreciate it. The real source says it's 10 p.m. here. It is. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? I myself am a bit behind on some work because I had no access to internet. So, you know, once we close out this call, I'm going to get back to that work. But yeah, I wanted to ensure that I gave you guys the update of what was happening in the play-by-play as it happened yesterday and what it feels like to be on the ground for a situation like this. You know, since I've been here this year, I've been here for an election. I've been here for some violence that happened around the election. I've now been here for this, and you know, I mean, I lived on Flatbush in Brooklyn for 13 years, and you know, as a kid, you know, my mother lived in the Bronx till I was 16. So when I would come home on break, I lived in the Bronx. And so I've lived in environments where gunshots go off frequently on a nightly basis, so much so that you get used to falling asleep hearing gunshots. So I would say that this was not that much different from that. I think the good news, though, is this. Even with all of this, right, and it is a lot, you have to think about it this way. In the United States, right now, there are 4 guns for every 1 person, right? Now, whether you agree with, you know, how the Second Amendment was interpreted in the United States or not, there are 4 guns for every 1 person. There are no universal background checks, and there aren't any limitations on. There are few limitations on who can get them and what you can do to alter your guns, depending on the state, right? Now, I myself am an advocate for protection, so protect yourself. But I will say, in those instances, you have a lot of bad people with guns, right? And there are many more circumstances like this one, maybe not a prison break, but in terms of like shootouts and things like that with stray people that happen in neighborhoods that are densely populated and amongst 2 groups of people who live in those neighborhoods. Whereas in this situation, it was a group of people who looked like they were going to try to fight against the government and not the general public or with other members of the general public. So even with all of this happening, and yes, I am concerned, you have to keep in mind that if you're living in the States, there are 20 people dying like every 2-3 weeks in certain cities, right? And it happens like that pretty frequently in the United States. So you have to put it all into perspective. I know this is shocking and crazy and it's all of the above, but I mean, just keep in mind what's the circumstances. You know, you could potentially be living in the United States depending on what city you're living in, right? And so these are all things to think about, right? And you know, when it comes to Africa and something like this happens, you know, it becomes international news, and it is news, right? I mean, because it seemed to be an attempted coup. But if you just look up the statistics on the number of people who experience loss of life in the United States weekly, you'll be shocked by how many of them is happening through gun violence. and I think it's just important to keep it all in perspective and understand that. Jax is saying, I would at some point know the names of who escaped. I'm too concerned if this will continue further. Yeah, I mean, you would want to know, yeah, exactly. You would want to know who escaped. And I'm sure the prison knows that, and they have that. They probably know where the people's families are and things like that. By the end of the day, if it's close to 2,000 people, I'm not sure how many of those people are going to get caught again. Because you can imagine those people were all caught at separate times, through separate cases, separate investigations. They weren't all caught at once. So, but they all escaped at once. And so how do you capture all of those folks again? And I'm not too sure I know the answer to that. So we'll see in the coming days what the plan is. But that is the situation on the ground. I think next Monday, I'll give you guys an update if there's a need for one. If something else happens and it's critical, we'll do an emergency live and go live. I haven't done one of those in a long time. So if necessary, we'll do that. But as of right now, those are the details as they stand today. And so with that, guys, I think we're going to bring this thing to a close. We're going to bring this live to a close. I want to thank you guys all for joining. Okay, there's some questions. Every time I go to say we're going to bring it to a close, more questions come in. So I'm going to answer some of these questions, and then we'll talk about it. Mark Hansen says, 20 people per day in the U.S. is different when you put it into perspective of people per country. Sierra Leone is far smaller than the population of the United States. Correct. Sierra Leone is much smaller than the population of the United States. So the percentage of people who died today is going to be a higher percentage of the Sierra Leone population of 9 million people than the 20 that die daily in the United States in a population of 350 million people. What I'm getting at, though, is this was one day, one time. Whereas in the United States, it's every weekend, right? And it's every weekend, multiple cities, multiple ways, right? You have domestic disputes, you have gang violence, you have interactions with the police in the United States. You have a number of different ways that people experience loss of life through, and you also have strays, right? And so these are things that happen throughout all over the United States. Most cities in the U.S. have had at least a casualty through firearms this year, and many have had multiple since this morning, right? And so, yeah, I mean, if you look at this 20 people of 9 million people versus the number in the United States, this 20 people out of 9 million is higher in percentage for this one incident. But what I'm speaking about is the constant incidents that are happening in the United States, right? And why it's important for that context is the idea of understanding that what happens here are more isolated incidents, while as what's happening there is the norm, right? It's so normal, we just talk about it. Like, most people will tell you not to watch the local news, right? In almost every state that you're in. You watch the local news and you're gonna hear a story of loss of life due to gunfire, right? So I think it's important, yes, to look at it. Yes, the size of the population is much smaller, so the 20 is not is a higher number than the population here, but it's less frequent, is what I was really trying to get at. So I hope that makes sense, Mark. Okimute says ECOWAS should work out something to ensure internal political problems and all member states are resolved conjunctively. Okay. I will say this. There's been a lot of conversation around how much people want ECOWAS involved in their internal affairs in each country. You know, there are a lot of citizens that have disputes with that, and that would say they'd like to not see that. But I think you're right. I mean, you have a governing body that's overseeing this block of West African countries, and you'd like to see them working together to try to figure out how do we ensure that there's political stability. So yes, I think you're right about that. The Real Source says you make an excellent point. Context is important. Agreed. Context is important. All right, guys. It has been a long day, even longer day yesterday. I have so much work to catch up on. You have no idea. I mean, Sunday was supposed to be my errand day, and like I had a laundry list of things to work on Sunday. You know, sometimes I like to show you guys like my my to-do list, so you guys know how I operate. I think that might be interesting to see it. So this was my to-do list yesterday. And then this was it from the day before, 2 days before. So there's a bunch of stuff on here. And so I check everything off. It feels good to check something off when it gets done. So I created to-do list with like sub bullets. So like this house tour video that I was supposed to do. I needed to reschedule it. I needed to get directions to where to go. There was like a bunch of stuff that I had to do. So I had like the main house tour and then like sub bullet points. So that is how I do my my to-do list. And so yesterday I had created this to-do list. Oh, losing papers. I created this to-do list. You can't even see it anyway. And I was only able to do a fraction of it because of the internet issue. So that is what I'm getting back to this evening. So iTuber says, digitize this, use Google, keep notes. You mean my checklist, right? So I actually do have online checklists, but it's not as gratifying to click the checkbox as it is to write it, like to really physically write it. And then sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I want to write it. And also, by the way, for a whole month, I've been living with this book for all of my checklist to-do items because I had no access to a laptop. So yeah. All right. Mark Hansen says, I like what he says about ECOWAS. That's technically what the U.S. is. The U.S. operates under federal government, but each state has its own individual laws too. Yes, correct, right? You do have, you know, each governor is kind of like the president of their own state. There's a state legislature in each state. They operate kind of independently, right? As you can imagine, as you can probably recall, during the pandemic, some states were open where other states weren't, even though federally there was a mandate. And so, yeah, I mean, each state can kind of operate independently as they so choose. And so each state has a president, basically, which is the governor, which, by the way, is interestingly enough, until Barack Obama, the majority of the presidents for the last however many years, I think like 80 years prior to that, were governors. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of them had been governors previously, because if you're like the president of a state, you just take that same process and try to apply it to the United States. And until Barack, and then Trump, and then now Biden, those three haven't been governors. They've been senator, business, senator. Anyway, yes. So yeah, you think ECOWAS is like a block that kind of has some rules and regulations, some things that they try to do, and then you have countries within it to decide to comply. So iTuber's talking about a Google Task app to sync with your Gmail, adds reminders to the calendar. Yes, I'm familiar with that, and I do use it from time to time. But again, I just like to check. I do know the task list. So I do tasks for things that I do need like a reminder for. And then my longer term goals are in this book. This book is my longer term goals. And this has all kinds of long-term to-do lists and business ideas and all kinds of stuff. When I lost power yesterday for about 4 hours, I was writing in here pretty heavily. So I haven't been known to be a writer, but I've now taken up writing. So now I have 2 of these where I keep goals and ideas, long-term plan goals and ideas, and then to daily to-do list go in here. All right, guys. So I want to thank you guys all for joining. We're now off topic, right? We're now talking about my goals and my to-do list. But I want to thank you guys all for joining. Nobody else is joining the live today. Depending on what happens over the next week, I may have other people participate next week. I had a very interesting conversation the other day about my political affiliations and my political leanings. And I think I want to do a live next week about who I am, right? Like, who are you? What makes up your belief system? And I think it's really important to share my belief system and why I believe what I believe. So we're going to talk about religious belief system. We're going to talk about political beliefs. We're going to talk about, I have a whole list of things, like how I identify ethnically, culturally, all of those things, right? And we're just going to list those out. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Your thoughts and your ideas about some of the things we talk about. So it's likely going to be next week, if not the following week. But I think it's important to kind of have your own doctrine and rules that you live by. And I think a lot of times that is informed by the life that you've lived. And so I kind of want to give you guys the whole range and spectrum of like where I fall in all of these different things. So I think it should be interesting. And again, I want it to be interactive because I want to hear from you all on these topics. So what I might do is actually put something out beforehand to get some ideas from you all. Maybe I'll do some polling and get your thoughts on where you guys stand on some of these things, like politically, where you land on the political spectrum, and all those kinds of things. I think it'd be really interesting. It could be an interesting conversation. I mean, I think that then will talk to you and inform you of or, you know, give you an understanding of why, you know, I believe what I believe and why I'm here and my belief system here, about what I want to do on the continent. All of that I think will be made more clear if we look at that point in time. All right. I am running out of steam, guys. I am tired. But I want to say to all of you, thank you for joining. I really appreciate you all. Thank you all for helping me get to 180,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, we started the year at 50,000 followers on Instagram, guys. 50,000. People keep asking me, did you buy followers? Did you boost posts? No. All of it is organic growth. All of it's organic growth. All my platforms, it's organic growth. I did not do anything to accelerate that, except some little hacks that I have done, which have nothing to do with like buying followers and stuff. I just know some tricks that you can do to kind of accelerate your growth. But anyway, thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate it as always. And of course, if you know anybody who is planning to come to Sierra Leone or who wants more information about what just happened over the last 24 hours, make sure you share this video with them. Make sure you subscribe, hit that thumbs up before you go. And with that, guys, thanks for watching. See you all on the next video.